Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition, post-game live stream podcast thing of the Missing Lynx. I'm Andrew Dukowitz from Zone Coverage. We have no overlay on the live stream because that's how things work when we record in the mornings. But there it is. And Andrew Haubner from No Cap Space WNBA, WBB, women's basketball.
WBB.
WBB is joining me today. Andrew, how's it going, man?
It's good. You know, it's chaos. You know, we have WNBA stuff. Y'all are barely keeping head above water on the NBA side with Julius Randle. Giannis randomly goes to Miami. You know, there's just a lot going on in the basketball world. And so here we are trying to make sense of all of it. I'm stoked, man.
I was on a podcast last night talking Wolves stuff, and they were like, so what's your day like if a trade happens at like 11:30? And I was like, well, I become very popular. I'm doing a Fox 9 thing this afternoon. I'll be recording a Wolves episode. I'm doing another Wolves pod about an hour from now, and then they have the draft tonight. Like, it's just, I don't get to sleep for the next 2 days, but never complain about something you've always wanted to do, right?
Valid. It's, you know, I was out at the Knicks parade with my wife last week. I'm a born and raised New Yorker, and I ended up going from down to Chattanooga, is where we live now in Tennessee, and so we ended up actually going out to New York to go see it, because how often are you ever going to see that? And it was really astounding how basketball, really, to me, it cemented itself as being like, it's our version of like the way soccer is for Europeans, like basketball is for Americans. Like, there's just like the working class communal collective aspect that people ascribe to soccer elsewhere is what it is for basketball. And the hidden caveat in there, to your point, is it means it is always happening. Men's basketball, women's basketball, pro, college, what have you. It means we quite literally never sleep because it is embedded in our lives. And I kind of love that, honestly. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, I love it. I frequently say, like, it's awesome to cover two good teams because it's just year round. Like, you never like get out of practice. You never don't have things to talk about. It's awesome. And I love the basketball to soccer comparison, because I do feel like the like barrier to entry in both of them is so low. Like, you just need a ball. Like, soccer is probably the easiest. Like, you can throw some backpacks down on the ground and there you have a goal. But honestly, basketball, all you need is a ball and a basket. Like, everyone can play it. Everyone has played it, and everyone cares, which with guests that come on for these bonus episodes, I've been doing this thing since Sirit came on, where I just like to ask people, like, who were the first players that made you like fall in love with basketball and kind of like formulated how you think about basketball? Because I feel like it's always interesting to me kind of tracking that of like, oh, the people that like are in media usually follow a certain path.
Yep. Okay. So for me, you know, growing up a stone's throw outside of New York City, obviously basketball was like very heavily embedded in what we all did. I would say the people that we have, Mike Nori to Portland. Okay.
Mike Nori to Portland. Finally got a starting job. So I'll have to rustle up a Mike Nori story for after the pod to post.
I love it. That's great. Dang, that's a big one for the Wolves too. So falling in love with basketball was very easy being in New York. I would say the first couple of people that really had me fall in love with it, believe it or not, Ben Gordon was one of my first.
Sounds a lot like Michael Jordan.
Yeah, well, Ben Gordon started his career playing for the great Bob Cimino at Mount Vernon High School, which is just down the street from where I grew up in Scarsdale. And that Mount Vernon team, they won the state championship. In New York, we have something called the Federation Championship, which is basically the non-New York City public high school teams and the New York City high school teams, the Long Island teams, all basically competing for one big championship. Mount Vernon wins the Federation that year. Ben Gordon then goes on to UConn. He wins a national championship with Emeka Okafor under John Calhoun, goes and plays in the pros to end up going ahead and, having a pretty nice career with Bulls and then a little further. So he was one. because he was quite literally a dude that was my, first real experience into even high school basketball in my area. And then Carmelo Anthony, man. I mean, the Cuse run with him and Jerry McNamara, that's like that. I'll be honest, that Melo is who got me back into Knicks fandom, right? Because when I was growing up as like a wee kid, I was not a huge basketball fan. I was a competitive skier growing up. And so my weekends primarily were spent training up in, places like Vermont, New Hampshire, and upstate New York. And the Knicks were categorically awful. Like these are the Eddie Curry years in the early 2000s, post like Allen Houston. And so it was easy to kind of not want to get involved with watching the Knicks. Then, high school, late middle school comes around for me. I end up with Amari Stoudemire, who is really the first star to make the push over. They've got Wilson Chandler. They've got Danilo Gallinari. It feels like things are turning up a little bit. I'm getting back into it. It's fun to watch the Knicks again. And then they trade for Melo. And I'm literally like, yeah, dude, my demon is freaking home. And that started, it really restarted what has now been, a 15 plus year love-hate affair with the Knicks that culminated in a championship last week, which was pretty cool. So those were my first experiences. In the women's basketball world, I've told this story a lot. It was seeing Diana Taurasi and Sue Bird on the cover of SI for Kids. That was really the thing that laid an expectation that that women's basketball wasn't like a novelty, that it was just something that as a kid you saw them in equal standing because they were on the magazine covers and they were the faces in the crowd and they did all of the things that you wanted them to do. And then, Lisa Leslie's in Backyard Basketball, and I'd always pick Lisa Leslie in Backyard Basketball, the humongous entertainment game. So like all of that blew up. And then Sanaya Chong was an Ossining kid. We played Ossining pretty regularly in high school. And so she was kind of my foray into like women's basketball coverage as I got into college. And so, long love affair with basketball, man. It's I'm glad you actually asked that question. That's cool. And I never really litigated like how deep that all goes back. But to your point about it being this sort of communal grassroots thing, for me, it literally started with watching a kid in high school, like at the neighboring high school who ended up going to the NBA.
Yeah, I mean, for me, and I always, for people that don't want to hear the story, you can fast forward like 2 minutes, but Jason Kidd, like Jason Kidd's always the guy that I go with. Like when he was at UCLA, like those games weirdly got like broadcasted in Minnesota, and I was like, who's this like lightning quick point guard?
White man?
like who is this guy, right? And I started playing basketball in like second and third grade. And, as I started playing more, Kid goes to Dallas and he's just like a show. And then he goes to Phoenix and he's a show. And then I used to have a bedtime back in the day. So I never could really watch Wolves games because one, they were on at like, if they were a national game and I didn't have cable growing up, they were on at like 10 o'clock. And like when you're in middle school, parents don't really like you like jumping around, dunking basketballs into baskets, watching NBA at 10 o'clock. So I ended up watching a lot of the East Coast teams. So like the New Jersey Nets were the first team that I really kind of fell in love with, that like Kerry Kittles, Keith Van Horn team. Then they trade for Jason Kidd and it's like, oh my God, now they have Kenyon Martin, Kittles, Jefferson, Kidd, the corpse of Alonzo Mourning before he went back to the Heat. And then I just kind of followed Kidd's career around. The other guy I watched a ton of was Allen Iverson. So like a lot of my views on basketball are like still in that early 2000s Jason Kidd, Allen Iverson type of lens, which, then you get older, you start covering the league, you start seeing more things. But that's the thing that when I started covering the WNBA was so fun for me, of like, oh, there's like Allen Iversons in the WNBA. Like there are guys there are gals that are like undersized, just making it work. There's people with funky jump shots. There's people that run straight up like Courtney Williams does. Like it just reminds me so much of like pre-AAU NBA that I just fell in love with it like instantly.
What's cool about the coverage, and something that has this whole last week of Knicks fandom has really inspired me to kind of dive a little deeper into this. And no, Magic Johnson as an answer does not age you, because as a 31-year-old, I feel like saying I watch Melo as a freshman in college, like I feel like that ages me at this point, right? So I think we're all in kind of similar, like back in my day boats here. But the fun thing about the WNBA that's really re-energized me is like my experience, right, was the prep basketball scene of New York. Like it was because the Knicks were bad for so much of my childhood. What you really started to gravitate towards was like the next generation of dudes coming up. Like I remember when Sebastian Telfair was hot in these streets. You know what I mean?
Out,
like there was a
world's
time,
legend, Seabass
legend, absolutely. Like sticky with the blicky, Sebastian Telfair, Abraham Lincoln High School. Like it was one of those things where you find so much of these names and people, because at the time, you know, the prep schools in Jersey hadn't gone, you know, and started pilfering the 5 boroughs the way that they do now. So back in the day, like you would still get guys like Omar Calhoun from Christ the King, right? You get Telfair from Abraham Lincoln. And in women's basketball, we don't necessarily have that kind of lore built up. Because right now we're just as a general basketball fan base, men's and women's, people are just starting to get acclimated to like the pros, right? Like people in the last 3-4 years are just learning about Asia Wilson. And through that are just learning about some of like the deeper cut historical players beyond Candace Parker or Lisa Leslie. And past that, even there's not like local high school mythology that's been created around these players. And it's kind of fun to do like the remember some guys thing, but for women's sports. Cause like this, you know, like we I'm sure could sit up here all day, and everybody in the chat that's listening could probably sit up here all day and be like, you know who I remember, bro? Chuck Person. Chuck Person was him, you know, and like, and 3/4 of the chat's going to be like, yeah, like I remember Chuck Person. The reason I remember Chuck Person so much is because I keep getting him in that damn 82-0 game. But we don't have remember some gals. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we don't have remember some gals in the sense of like, hey, do y'all remember Yolanda Griffith? Even Yolanda is like a Hall of Fame player that like you should know, right? Maybe a more apt example of this, like Courtney Williams, when her career is over, is going to be this kind of player where like she might not end up in the Hall of Fame. She'll probably be like one of these perennial all-star Hall of Very Good types. But like if you're a ball knower 20 years from now and people are dropping like Noel Devine, West Virginia college football highlights, like we're going to be dropping Courtney Williams WNBA highlights being like, hey, remember Courtney Williams, right? And so there's a cool thing happening in the WNBA right now, and something that, you know, we've really tinkered with jumping both feet into at No Cap Space. And I think we're probably going to, you know, pretty soon here, is trying to create the remember some guys ecosystem, but for WNBA players, because frankly, it's needed. Like it is needed to be like, hey, like even a player like Lindsay Whalen. Lindsay Whalen is one of those remember some gals. Yeah. And now she's sitting there playing the role as a key assistant to her next protege, which is Olivia Miles. You know, so as long as we get to kind of use that to tie what the history is to what we're seeing now, that aspect of basketball is always transferable. And that's kind of a thing that's been cool about the W's growth, is getting to tap into that in a way where it feels like it's already very well established on the men's side. And on the women's side, there's all of this cool canvas to play with, because you get to show people not just do you remember them, it's actually get to know them, get to meet them, you know?
That's been one of the most fun parts of like my shtick in the NBA and WNBA, is like, if you read my written work, it's usually really nerdy and really like trying to like back up premises, and like I take a lot of pride in my written work, but a lot of the stuff that I get credit for on social media and stuff is like humanizing the players, going to the charity events, going and like showing these people with kids, asking questions about their lives. Cheryl saying she should have done it for the gays. Like that's kind of the shtick that I've
that was a banger of a line from Cheryl, dude. She's so funny.
We have After she left the room, I was like, that's 3 years of building up rapport right there for her to interrupt my question and say it should have done it for the gays. But like, and that's what's been so fun is with this boon in the WNBA, like people don't know who Courtney Williams is. Like people who have followed her career from like Georgia to now obviously have, but I would even wager like a third of Lynx fans don't know that she has like an anime sleeve on her leg of all of the like favorite animes she watched growing up. Like those are the things that for me is just kind of fun because you get to like tell the story for the first time. Whereas in the NBA, things have been told so many times that like you're kind of just rehashing things every year and kind of reestablishing things. It's just a ton of fun. And you mentioned like the remember when people, like I think that's an awesome point of there isn't that ecosystem in the W, because honestly, up until like 7 or 8 years ago, it just wasn't the same fan base. Like Caitlin obviously gets her credit, Paige gets her credit, Liv is going to bring in a whole nother swath of new fans. But like I went to games in 2017. Playoffs were always packed, but like a regular season game on a Tuesday, there's 3,000, 4,000 people in a stadium. Like there wasn't enough people watching to have those conversations, which one really sucks for Lynx fans, particularly because like an entire dynasty was built with 5 Hall of Famers. But I think is really cool to be able to like give those Lynx fans in retrospect, like, this is the coverage you every like they always deserved this coverage. It's just now, enough people are supporting the coverage that it's feasible, which for no cap space, like that's how you guys have been able to kind of really get a good niche here of covering the league daily.
Yeah, it's about a missing middle, I think, right? Where there aren't necessarily the amount of national outlet, like it's gonna like I'm gonna put my like Mom Donnie cap on here. There's no middle class. Like there's no middle class in terms of coverage within the league. It's either really big or it's really hyper localized team to team, and that is great if you either want to build a broad casual audience or you want to build a really serious team to team audience. But it doesn't do much to engender people that, maybe want to cover it or ingest it somewhere between casual and diehard, right? Like you need that kind of set middle ground. And we just don't have a lot of outlets here that do that, right? The NBA has something like The Ringer, or college sports has, the whole recruiting apparatus of 247 Sports, Rivals on 3. We don't necessarily have that in the W yet. And so no cap space kind of serves as an opportunity to do that, right? Like you either are learning the game and you want to take it a level deeper, or you're really serious and want to get something that's maybe a little bit more broad view, but still drills down on the stories that need to be told. And to me, I think that's a cool thing about where the game is going right now, is that there are, I think up at the top, the access is only going to get tighter, right? Yeah. Like trying to get somebody like Fee to jump on like a non-team sanctioned media availability, those days are probably over in terms of the ease of operation, for us to be able to go do that, especially as independent outlets. But there is a wide opening now because there is much more of an audience that maybe people want to read the Kayla McBride feature a little bit more. And it pays to do that feature more than it did 2 years ago, potentially. And I think that for us is the thing that we're trying to, do. And I always joke, we're like the ADHD outlet where it takes us like a month to ramp up like how we want to properly cover the league. And then we hit our stride by July. We do this in NCAA too, where it's like November, like our coverage is like, okay, we're going to make sure we get like the stuff out of the way and then hit the stride. But in terms of actually getting, features of players and doing the storytelling component, those like 1.5 tier players down are the ones that I think are benefiting the most from the influx of attention, because the top folks are going to go to the top publications. At this point, if you're an independent person, like you might as well make your peace with the fact that unless you get huge, you're probably not going to get like one-on-one sit-down access with Asia Wilson, right? But there's now a wide lane for you to go get that story on Alyssa Smith, to go potentially get that story on Jackie Young, to go get that story on, Latoya Sanders, who's the assistant working with Angel Reese and trying to, help fix where her ball positioning is in the post with Carl Smesko. That's the thing for us that is the wide open lane. And as long as teams are willing and agents are willing to kind of play ball with that, it's very easy for you to do it. And that type of stuff is what actually builds up the type of fan base where one of your commenters said where the reported attendance is consistently good for something like the Lynx or, the Valkyries. It's because you're not just finding affinity with the best players. The same way that, like, I was a kid and I, found affinity for Ben Gordon through proximity. Like, who the hell is watching the Chicago Bulls rooting for Ben Gordon, who's like the fourth guy in the rotation with Kirk Heinrich? You know what I mean? Like, you need those guys that you just find kinship with. And I think what's great about the Lynx this year from a coverage side of things, and what's frankly been good about them the past couple seasons, is it really isn't just a one-person show with Fee. You are, Courtney Williams has a great story. Like, the Stud Buds took over the league last year with that story. Yep. Olivia Miles is now a great story. Natasha Howard is a wonderful story. Lindsay Whalen is awesome to go along with Cheryl Reeve. And so once you start kind of putting together all of these different stories, in a pastiche, you start to create a holistic picture for the fans, so they can not just become affiliated with Nafisa Collier and where Fee goes, they go. Now they're interested in all of these players. And even if Fee leaves, they still have a fan in Courtney Williams or a fan in Kayla McBride. So now instead of watching one team, they're watching two. And sometimes they're watching three, and now they're watching the entire league. Like, we don't have a patience for it necessarily because, everyone's got to try and make a little bit of money on this, right? But I try to see this in like a 5-10 year window, right? Where what everyone is doing and building now is going to pay dividends in terms of how we talk about the game come 2030, for instance. And as long as that's sort of the lens we look at it through, I think it's hard to not consistently be optimistic and positive about where the game is going, because when you look at it from that lens, you see a trend line that goes up like this instead of seeing all the little, dips that happen on the way to the linear curve, which is always going upward.
Yeah, I mean, I first want to just highlight someone in the chat. I'm not even going to try and pronounce your YouTube name because that is way too many vowels and consonants and numbers.
Is that a Welsh town?
Welsh town?
This looks like, those towns in Wales where, like, like, that's.
I was sitting here like, how did you get Welsh town out of Weogen? Like,
I feel like do you remember that Iceland volcano that erupted 5-6 years ago that stopped all the flights? Like, Ayafuya, blah blah blah. Yeah, that's what I feel like I'm looking at right now.
It does have that vibe, but
I love it.
Comment is very apt of like independent outlets like yours at No Cap Space, mine at Zone Coverage, Hitting the Hardwood, who this podcast is through. Like, we're not really told what to say, and we do know the game. So, I mean, my shtick with like this podcast is most of the people that are listening, if I mention Bridget Carlton's towel and its role in Cheryl Reeve's ejection, everyone will know what I'm talking about because you're all diehards. And that's like why I have found, again, like, there is such fandom for these teams. And your point is 100% on of like, the reason people are sports fans is because they root for the people. Like, there's people that, there's Knicks fans that went out to the parade because they're like lifelong Knicks fans, but I guarantee you they have a favorite player on a team. And it's because, maybe it's because they scored 18 points a game one year. I would argue that it's more likely that they remember like hearing a good story about that player, or seeing them autograph some kid, or like, I think the reason like Ants for the Wolves has such a following is like he gives his shoes and his jersey away after every road game. Like, those stuff just like that builds a fan for life. Like, even if you don't know the kid, like it does. And the W, I'm not going to sit here and like, say that every player in the W is like better than every player in the NBA as like people, but they have so many good stories, like just so many good people that, you know, you just shed some light on it and then fans root for that team forever. I mean, people are bringing up Nia Coffey in the chat, like outside of her being from Hopkins, like how many people have like followed Nia Coffey's game, but now she's with Minnesota, hometown kid. She's foodie. She's like sarcastically funny, and people are going to be following Nia's career now for the rest of however long she plays. As more people are chanting in Coffee references.
I love it.
That's like the fun part, though, is just getting to know these players as people.
You know, I was going to say, you have a commenter in here that shouts out Rebecca Brunson. Rebecca Brunson is exactly who we're talking about. Rebecca Brunson is an absolutely like ideal, like platonic ideal of like, now here's the guy, you know, like this is like, this is an OG, like, again, a player that 5-time All-Star, you know, a couple all defensive teams, not going to be somebody that you immediately remember if you're like a casual fan who pays attention to the tops. But if you are a fan of a team or a fan of the league and you've been around kind of in a generational way, there's going to be fans that are like, do you remember Rebecca Brunson? Right. And that's kind of like fun about what Tash Howard is doing this year, right? Where Natasha Howard's been in this league for a really long time, man. Like she's won championships with the Seattle Storm. She has had certain years where she's kind of been, you know, tinkering around like all WNBA level, but a consistent all-star. And now this year she's playing at an all WNBA level and doing this pick and roll with Olivia Miles. That's so potent. And, you know, 5 years from now, if the Lynx turn this into a championship this year, 5 years from now, someone's going to be like, hey, you remember Natasha Howard, like 2026 Natasha Howard? You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's those kinds of things that I think we can do better generally in WNBA media. And this is the hard thing, right? And I say this fully knowing the optics of like two white guys sitting here, you know, parachuting and talking about the women's game. But like, I don't necessarily think that there needs to be like a more bro dude style of coverage in order to attract a different clientele of fans. I think you don't have to lean into like the boorish behavior, but I think there's like some dudes rock stuff that you can bring in, and remembering some guys is like the ultimate thing. And you know, Nia Coffey is about to be another remember a guy. So
the Nia Coffey remember the start of 2026 is something I will be bringing up for years. And like I agree with you. What I found covering NBA and W, excuse me, is a lot of fans just need a permission structure. And that sounds shitty because it is shitty. Like you shouldn't need a permission structure to enjoy something you like. Like if you like basketball, you shouldn't have to be like, well, I guess I'll give the Lynx a chance because John Krasinski covers the Lynx. Like you should just be able to do whatever you want to do. But I found a lot of Wolves fans over the last couple of years, like because I cover the Lynx the same way I cover the Wolves, I see them in the live chats. I see them sharing posts that they wouldn't have shared 3 years ago. And I do think like the more mainstream the WNBA gets, the more people are going to feel whatever they need to give it a chance. I mean, Cheryl used to say all the time, like, just come to a game. Like, if you just come to a game, you'll fall in love with it. And I really think that now that this is, you know, they're on national TV, like reporters that cover the NBA and college or your guys' outlet where you guys have established reporters, like it just leads people down a path of like, okay, like I like this person's work, I'll check it out. Or, hey, this personality that I like, whether it's like a bro podcast or whatever, I'll check it out. Which again, I objectively think that sucks, like that our society is built that way where, you know, a lot of people in this world, especially when it comes to like women's sports or things that are outside of their like cultural zone, need some sort of like permission that it's okay for you to like this. But that's one of the things I've learned the most over the last 2 years is just there's a lot of fans out there that just have never given it a chance because there's just something in their psychology that puts a roadblock in the way of enjoying it, which society, right?
Absolutely. And I think what's been cool to watch, and it's not just Caitlin Clark, it's not just Angel Reese, it's this whole generation. I've been saying this for a few months now. Like, this is a legitimate golden generation in American women's basketball. We always churn out stars because, again, I think basketball really is our biggest national sport and biggest global cultural export when it comes to athletics. And yet we're always putting out players that are like the top 3 players in the sport, any given year. But this group in particular, this is a really special group of guards. Caitlin Clark, Olivia Miles, Paige Beckers, Hannah Hidalgo, Juju Watkins. If you notice, they're all backcourt players.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
We have great front court players. Obviously, Sarah Strong's coming into the league, but I do think that guards are motion movers, I think, within basketball, men's or women's, because the true essence of it, it's, again, to bring back the soccer analogy, right? It's not the beautiful game, it's our beautiful game. But the same way a 5'7" striker like Lionel Messi can be the best player in a sport, and it looks and feels better sometimes than, like Josie Altidore just out muscling people on the pitch. In basketball, I think sometimes we love the creativity and craftiness of a person who has the ball on a string. There's just something aesthetically pleasing about it. And I think that's part of the Olivia Miles experience too. And what she's doing is people are getting back to realize, like, they're getting back to falling in love with wiggle. You know what I mean? Like, great guards have wiggle, like the ability to either manipulate the court with their vision, with their body, with where they're holding the ball and where they're deciding to dribble and move laterally. And Olivia Miles' ability to manipulate space is the thing that I think people absolutely can't get enough of, because while it is fun to watch, Asia Wilson or Nafisa Collier like kind of gazelle down the floor and have this incredible footwork, that step through pivot. I mean, that step through pivot for Fee is, to me, is the ultimate. It's like a trademark move for her, and I think we need to give her a little bit more credit for it, because that move is starting to make it over into the NBA. And so
it is,
and there's plenty of players. You see Shakira Austin starting to do it a lot more to really great success now. But that step through pivot from Fee is like, that is pretty much her, that is her move. However, that move is fun. The no look passes and the space manipulation by Olivia Miles, sometimes a little bit funner, And so having all of these guards that do just generally fun stuff that are able to do all of the things that we ask players to do, it feels much cooler. It feels a little bit more accessible, not just in terms of like affordability of watching games, but it feels more accessible to people because it looks more familiar. I don't think that when we talk about the homogeneousness, if you will, of the NBA, I don't necessarily think that's a play style critique. I think it's the fact that damn near everybody, like the average height is 6'8". And at a certain point, it starts to feel less accessible athletically. And it's why people like a Jalen Brunson, right? Because Brunson is 6'1", or Steph Curry is 6'3". And, you can walk down the street and see people that are 6'1" and 6'3". You don't see a lot of people walking down the street that are 6'8" and taller. And so from the women's game, where obviously the height distribution is a little bit different, I think there is this affinity of like, hey, man, I'm watching this 5'7" guard come out here and cook damn near everyone on the floor. Like, I can find a player like this potentially hooping out on a blacktop in my town and in my city. And I think the guards in the W right now are rekindling that kind of feeling of familiarity that I think maybe we've lost a little bit in the NBA by virtue of, we're practicing athletic eugenics in the NBA at this point. And again, you gotta win.
Not games. Wrong. That's why I'm laughing.
You gotta win games, but there's still enough variance within the game where like analytics hasn't wiped out that type of stuff that makes people feel like they can find kinship and common cause with players that are on the floor. The W still has that. And I think there's a desire to try and safeguard that as much as possible, which I think is nice.
Andrew, I do want to get more into the Olivia Miles of it all.
Please.
We've got 35 minutes on the intro, which might be a new record, but also was delightful. So I'm going to run some ads here. When we come back, we'll talk Olivia Miles, and we'll try and get out of here before you miss a meeting or something. Well, hello. Thank you, Livestream Andrew. This is Ad Read Andrew. And today we have Firehawk Construction and Remodeling, the presenting sponsor for the Missing Lynx podcast. Firehawk Construction and Remodeling strives to inspire people to follow their ideas, working with respect and understanding to create a quality, tailored result. Firehawk Construction and Remodeling, located in Blaine and serving in the North Metro area, is here to help you with your building and remodeling needs. I can say personally, thanks to Firehawk Construction and Remodeling, I have a beautiful deck in my backyard, and countless projects that I started, they finished. Get started on your new deck or remodel today by calling Isaac at 763-710-5686. And we're back with another ad read, this time for Pence Homes, the presenting sponsor of Hitting the Hardwood Network. From the best tools and technology to transparency throughout the entire process, Nate Pence and the Pence Homes team is the top choice for buyers, sellers, and is proud to support you and your home ownership goals. Get started today by calling 612-308-1122 or by emailing info@pencehomes.com. Kenneth Ward says, can Andrew and Andrew finish this pod before the Libs Aces game tonight? Boy, I hope so. I have other things to do too. But this is the problem when you get two guys that talk to each other on a pod. Olivia Miles, you talked about it a little bit of just like the wiggle. I think the other thing with her is just like the trash talk is awesome. Like, I think fans, even if you're one of the people that's like, let your game do the talking, when you see someone go into the front two rows of the fans to just celebrate after a shot, like, that's just objectively awesome. The afro is incredible. Like, just being true to yourself. The goggles are awesome. Like, she's not necessarily like the fastest straight line player, but like her ability to just like get quickness, like, I have so much more hope in humanity seeing people show up in goggles to Lynx games and pink wigs still. But like, man, Liv is going to bring a whole new like fan base to this game because she is just so freaking fun.
Yeah, it's one of these things where I don't read too much into the recent game struggles because variance is going to occur, right? That like everyone's going to have a dud game. Now, the degree to how much of a dud it is, obviously, is the determining factor here. But everyone's going to have dud games here and there. You know, there's going to be nights where you're off. There's going to be nights where teams figure you out a little bit, where, you know, a physicality frustrates you, or they just put a guard that has your number and you just get clamped. Like, it occurs. And so I tend to look at the full year picture with her, and what I cannot conceptualize still is the fact that you still have Nafisa Collier coming back. You know? And so even if, right, and this is why I don't read too much into the struggles, is like, even if she has a couple of bad games here and there, and, you know, they've had a couple of bad games for her this weekend, she's eventually going to get the second best player in the league back into this rotation. And think about the gravity that's going to take away from her, you know, Miles herself. And so I am looking at kind of the holistic piece with her, and my takeaway for the whole year has been, this is pretty much who the Lynx have needed for the last couple of years. You know, you've said it on our show, Sloan Martin, we had her on last week on Luxury Tax. She said it there too, that, you know, Courtney Williams and Kayla McBride are not pure points. And while Olivia Miles has the scoring touch, she is a much more pure point guard. She is a pass first point guard, no matter what she puts up in the points column. And so that in itself already opens up so many different doors, and it unlocks the versatility of this team and what Cheryl Reeve has wanted to do with it. So to me, I love that. And I don't worry too much about what one bad game or two bad games here or there says about this team moving forward. Because again, when you're getting back a potential MVP candidate, even if it takes Fee a second to ramp up into her full thing, you're going to get a player of Olivia Miles' caliber running that offense still, which is only going to open things, more to a certain degree. And I think that also, to your commenter's point here, is you've kind of needed a player like this in Minnesota for a little bit. Like, I feel like Minnesota has flown under the radar the way like UCLA Corey Close teams up until this year. The last 2 seasons have been like, oh, they're kind of beating the brakes off everyone. They have 4 losses going into the NCAA tournament, but can they beat UConn? Can they beat South Carolina? I guess we'll find out. It feels like there has been that sort of like greater than the sum of the parts. They're quietly really good. We're not going to pay a ton of attention to them because Fee just kind of is very workmanlike. Like, she is out front, but is much more of a business savvy superstar in that respect. Like, she's not trying to go out and get the motion the way Angel or Caitlin are. That's also by virtue of the fact that she's just older than them. You have different priorities in your older 20s, frankly. But with Olivia Miles, you've got this injection of youth. You've got this desire to kind of court the audience a little bit in a way that maybe Fee doesn't feel like she has to do at this point in her career. And I don't think she necessarily needs to. But now you've got a kid who like loves the theater of this. And with Cheryl Reeve, who also, mind you, loves the theater of this, there's like, you finally have that coach avatar on the floor that now gets to give you a little bit of sauce, can talk some smack to other players, who's going to give you the things that make the crowd, like on TV, you can audibly hear everyone go, oh, like it just, she does all of the things that you need her to do to get a fan base energized. And that, I think, is the X factor more than the individual performances, is you are making the Lynx a show. And that is what I feel like the Lynx have needed for the last couple of years. They've needed a Showtime element, and they have one now.
Yeah, it's Fee is Jim Suhan from Star Tribune wrote a really good feature on this if people want to read it, from last year, of just like Fee is Tim Duncan. Like, she is the quiet superstar that is just fun. His nickname was the Big Fundamental. Like, that should be Fee's nickname. Like, Queen Fee is pretty iconic, but like everything Fee does is perfect. Like, her footwork is perfect. Her blocks are perfect. Her defensive positioning is perfect. Like, everything about her is like the ideal basketball player. And again, to the comment about Liv being a badass, like, Liv's just a hooper. Like, she just goes out there and is like, I bet I can throw it between 3 people's legs. And if it doesn't happen, I'm going to bust my ass on defense and then try it again in a couple possessions. And the Lynx, they haven't had that. Like, Court is a hooper, but like, Court was being asked to play point guard at a Cheryl Reeve level. Like, that's just tough. Like, K-Mac, I think, again, you can say she's a hooper, but she's also like one of the most technically sound shooters the league has ever seen. Yeah. Like, Lan obviously was a really good player, but again, like, not really just that pizzazz. The Lynx just have whatever the it factor is, that the Lynx just have it now. And on a national level, I think that's why they're going to be talked about a ton, especially when Fee comes back. Because like, if we think these driving lanes are open now, I don't know what, I've been saying it a lot on the pod of just like, I don't know what defenses do. Like, you can't double anyone if Fee's back, which
nope.
And Cheryl loves. I'll pose the question to you: like, what do you do when Fee does come back if you're lining up against this team?
I mean, you have to be sound off ball. I think that's really going to be the thing. Is I also do love the spectacle personally. I know a lot of people have had issues with like the spectacle as a nickname. I think the spectacle absolutely rips.
I'm putting all of my power behind it for that.
100%. Yeah, you got to stop off ball movement. Like, that's really what this team does so well. Is it's very rare that players are scoring in isolation. And, I'd say Court maybe is like the one player who has the ability to do that just because she is so good one-on-one. But the real secret sauce of this team is how much they punish you off ball because of how good Miles's manipulation is. Like, she can open up passing lanes, and if you are on your P's and Q's, you will hit a cut and you'll be wide open. And it's that sort of intuitiveness that has made this team so deadly. And I think if you are a really good defense, you have a shot. The problem is you also got to make a lot of shots on the other end. And there's not a lot of teams that are that complete this year when it comes to that. There are teams that I think could be that complete. I don't really know from the Aces side. I think you're maybe out like one or two wings, especially like when you get deeper into the bench. Like, I think that's where the Lynx can kind of get you. I think the Liberty are the Lynx's hardest pure matchup in terms of size, length, shooting. But you know, the Liberty are hot and cold. Like, they've done this weird helter-skelter dance for the last 3 years. And then the other team that I could see maybe posing a challenge is Atlanta. And Atlanta, to me, I think once you get Bree Jones back, you're probably going to get the toughest, most versatile matchup there. But again, defensively, is Atlanta that type of tight that they're going to be able to manage everything off ball that Minnesota is going to throw at them? I think it's possible because you have Ryan Howard, you have Angel Reese, you have Jordan Canada's fast enough that she'll be able to hang with somebody like Miles. You stick Reese on Fee and then let either Okot or a healthy Bree Jones try to be able to, you know, manage the post. And then you have enough athletic wings that, you know, you can figure out something to do and go small, go big, do what you need to do. But I think that's I think there's just not a lot of teams that are going to be able to do this with them. And that, to me, is going to be the interesting thing. It's going to make for some great series, as I have a feeling. Yeah. If we end up with like a Lynx Dream Finals, for instance, that could be an absolute heater of a WNBA Finals.
That's I agree with you. I think, you know, like we kind of saw without Fee, there is kind of a blueprint in the Valkyries, how they played the Lynx, where it's just like slow Olivia down, don't let her get ahead of steam, and just switch like crazy, like off ball switches, like just frenetic pace on defense, trying to keep up with everybody. They don't have the offense, right? So I do think you're right in like Atlanta, New York, and the Aces are kind of the three. I keep going back to like, man, it's going to be exhausting.
Yeah.
Like, holy cow. If your matchup is, hey, you're one of our lesser defenders, we're going to put you on K-Mac because she's not involved on ball as much, and you're just running through 55 screens a quarter.
Yep.
And it's just, but in a playoff series, that's going to be awesome. Like, for basketball fans watching the Lynx in the playoffs go through, hopefully to the finals, and hopefully we get a good matchup in the finals. Like, I'm to the point where I'm like, I've seen enough this regular season. Let's bring Fee back and then just stay healthy, because some of these playoff series are going to be just incredible, which, again, shout out to the league for kind of figuring it out.
Look, this is what growth is supposed to engender, right? Like, growth is supposed to lead to more exciting outcomes because of more competition, because the money is more spread around. There's more teams, there's more opportunities, there's more roster spots, so players can figure out where they fit, you know, right. And this was always the promise of a new CBA, was this idea that all of this is like the rising tide is quite literally going to lift all boats. Now, the Lynx are a boat that, you know, has always kind of been risen, right? Like, if anything, they're like Noah's Ark. But, you know, the fact that an organization like Minnesota has managed to adapt to this and figure all of this out and still be at the top of the league is a testament to how well run that organization is, first and foremost, right? Because think about what the vibes were around this team in April.
I know.
Like, there was like fee signed, but it was kind of weird. And like, she's in the Time interview and people are like, did she actually want to be there? But they court her. So I guess she's going to stay. It's like, oh, they have Olivia Miles. I guess that's cool, but they lost all their free agents. Is K-Mac and Courtney going to be enough? Oh, they got Natasha Howard. I mean, I guess that's going to be fine. And now everyone's like, oh, word, never mind. Close enough. Well, welcome back, Simone, Maya, and Brunson and Whalen. Like, it's just one of those kind of funny ways that the world works. And that, it doesn't start and stop with Cheryl Reeve, but it certainly starts with her. And, if there was ever a case that like, hey, man, Dawn Staley, Gina Wariema, Pat Summitt, I get it. Colleges, rings, etc. Cheryl's a GOAT in this game, bro.
Yeah. Cheryl
is the GOAT in this game.
I go across genders. I mean, she is what she is able to see and develop is wild. And then
bananas.
I mean, her defense is completely different this year. Like, she completely changed her defense from the LAN kind of drive everything baseline and let her clean up to we're going to give up some inefficient threes and we're going to let mid ranges happen and we're going to live with analytics. Like, in 1 year to just be like, new defense. Hey, we got a point guard now, entirely new offense. We're going to run the most pick and rolls in the league after having like some of the least. We led the league in assist percentage last year. Now we're a pick and roll ISO team. Just flips the switch, which it's literally bananas what she's able to do. Andrew, we're coming up on an hour though, and we talked about a little bit of Lynx and a lot of bit of life, but anything else you want to empty the clip on? Caitlin Clark, Fever fans wanting Cheryl Reeve. There's a lot of fun Lynx narratives right now. Anything else you got?
I think if I have anything else, at the Minnesota State Fair last year, they had, I think they were two pigs, one named Stud and one named Bud. And I wanted to chase that story last season toward the end of the year, but the playoffs started. I would love to go and find that farm and find how Stud and Bud are doing. I don't know if they were baby pigs or baby sheep or it was a baby animal. But they had Stud and Bud. And so I hope Stud and Bud are doing well. In the WNBA side, hey, look, the one thing I'll say is, the Seattle Storm are not very good this year. Like, they are kind of embracing the tank. It hasn't looked great at times. But last night, the Dom Malonga Alafam combo. Oh, boy. That was the vision. Holy cow. Like, this is just all three levels. These two tall, long, unbelievable players. Like, that was, boy, I was out about, like, that was sensational to watch. Genuinely sensational. And it just is a constant reminder of how good this team can be. Someone said CC fans need some mood stabilizers. I recommend personally, I recommend the Lexapro. I got my little daily. I have my little cocktail, right? I got my Lexapro, and I've got a little, got some Adderall that XRs that we work with. Make sure we keep the ADHD at bay. The mood stabilizer is this. Whatever happened between Tawana Bonner and that Fever organization last year, which I think was always a mistake. Like, I don't even know what Indiana was thinking in signing her. Like, you had drama during the Sun Fever 2024 playoffs in which Alyssa Thomas and Tawana Bonner clearly had problems with the Fever during that series, and you go ahead and sign her anyway. Like, I don't know what outcome you thought was going to change. If you were or Lynn Dunn or Amber Cox or I don't know what you thought was going to happen. That was a bad. Everybody saw that was going to go poorly. Bad marriage from the beginning. But I think if you're a good team, this is a Fever team that has been basically pulling grievance, and manufacturing grievance all year long as a means to try and bring together their locker room, to try and craft one sole narrative. It's been the media's fault that people are reading deeply into Stephanie White and Caitlin Clark. It's been the fans' fault for going too crazy for certain things. It's, the league's fault or other players' fault or other teams' fault or whatever. It's always somebody else's fault, right? And all season, it feels like they have been looking for like a touch point that they can kind of rally around and say, hey, look, that's our grievance right there. That individual thing is what we need to point to rally around. Great teams find that. I think they may have found it. And we'll see how this generates over the course of the year. But you need, if you're going to play the grievance route, you need a damn clear like thing to point to, right?
Yep.
In the case of somebody like a team like the bad boy Pistons of the 80s, right? They had a very clear Boston Celtics. Yep. And later into the late 80s, early 90s, they had a very clear Jordan rules, right? There was an obvious villain there. And to those two teams on the flip side, they also, like the bad boy Pistons, were the very clear villains as well. Now that you have a pretty clear, like galvanizing force in the locker room or on the floor being like, all of y'all banded together to not get rooked by DeWanna Bonner and Alyssa Thomas. Now it feels like you actually have like a grievance to push. Not like, oh, woe is us, but more of, you know what? They want to feel like that about us. Cool. Let's lean in. And it feels like I am loath to give credit to Sophie Cunningham for literally anything at all, but I don't really have an issue with the pointing, man. That's what she was brought there to do.
Yep.
Because at the end of the day, like whatever you want to say about DeWanna Bonner's resume or she's, been a career 16, 17 point per game scorer in this league. She's blooded. She has this, she has that. At this point in her career, DeWanna Bonner is a bench player. Yep. So what are you supposed to do when a bench player is getting in the mix with your superstar? You bring in the enforcer to get in their head, to take the attention away, to be a pest, to do all of those things. That is quite literally what they paid Sophie Cunningham to do. So while I think Sophie Cunningham gets away with a lot of nonsense, and I don't love, the dropping drama in the podcast, and then all of a sudden it's everybody else's fault for reading too deeply into what you say or what you post. I don't love getting off the bench to argue calls like you're Brianne January. I don't love a lot of things that she does and the things that she gets away with. Do I think it's really weird that Stephanie White only seems to reserve challenges for Sophie Cunningham? Absolutely. It feels very strange to me that she only seems to do that for her. However, in that situation, that's what you brought her here to do. She is doing her job description there, as is Maisha Hines-Allen, by making sure that Alyssa Thomas isn't going to come in there and bully her way through things, just to that point, right? So I actually think that, do I love certain elements of what, I saw last night kind of in the midst of that? Maybe not. But I also, can kind of see, look, if you're Indiana and you want to be the villain, be the villain. Yeah. Be cool with it, man. And I think like you're starting to see Caitlin Clark be okay with that notion a little bit more. I think in a lot of ways, the reason I use the bad boy Pistons analogy is I do think there's a little bit of Isaiah Thomas and Caitlin Clark where there is just an off-putting affect that she has with some players that they just don't like her. I think there's elements of her personality where she's okay being the villain, but it's not her first choice. I don't think she wants to be the villain in the way I don't think Isaiah wanted to be the villain. But then you got this little devil on your shoulder in the form of Bill Laimbeer, in the form of Sophie Cunningham. That's like, do it. Like, just do it. Lean in. And to me, I mean, if you really want to lean in and you want to go ahead and, galvanize your locker room around that, maybe that's what you've needed this whole time. Maybe you have needed the final permission structure to say, you know what, F it. We're just going to do this. And maybe that's the thing that they've been looking for all year.
It does seem like that would be a more clear path, right? Like, yes. I do think if you said that we're going to be the team that, plays gritty, is the villains of the league, embraces kind of the, shit talking side of it and other things, like at least then you have we are going this direction together. Right now, they just are, I guess, like for most of the season, I guess it could have changed after the Mercury game. it just feels like everybody's just paddling in random directions, hoping that the current takes them someplace, which usually doesn't end well, which I'm personally hoping the Lynx eventually embrace the villain role, because like Natasha Howard has had some low-key banger quotes that like villains say. Olivia Miles has had some villain moments. Court, obviously, in Golden State had the villain blowing the kiss thing. So I'm always rooting that, like, man, maybe the Lynx will just be Darth Vader this year. But probably better for the league if the Fever are Darth Vader and then the Lynx are. I'm still working on the Star Wars analogy, guys. I will figure that out eventually, but eventually I'll figure out and pair every Lynx player to a Star Wars character. I
can't wait to watch that episode. I can't. I will be there. For that.
I'll tag you in it. But Andrew, thank you so much for giving me an hour on a random Tuesday to talk W as the NBA world explodes. I always say whatever team's in season, I am going to cover with all my might. So you'll get my Wolves thoughts a little bit later. But again, Andrew, appreciate it. Everyone go check out No Cap Space. Anything you got to plug before we get out of here?
Yeah, just subscribe to the free daily newsletter. It's a great little afternoon wrap up every day of what's going on in the WNBA, women's basketball writ large. If you're a subscriber to the Ball Knowers tier on either YouTube or with our newsletter, you get exclusive access to our boots on the ground coverage, to our storytelling, to our features, the ability to be in the mailbag and ask questions and do all these other things. So we're building a cool community. If you want to join it, feel free to. And Duke, thanks for having me on, man. It's always fun to chop it up with you. A real treat of this season has been getting linked up with you and starting to kind of be able to bump some content back and forth.
Absolutely, man. Appreciate it. For anyone that joined into this a little bit late, does get posted up on YouTube and X and Buzzer. As soon as I end the stream, it'll be out as a podcast tomorrow. That would be the 24th at 7 a.m. And we will be back again after the Mystics game to break that down. Not Andrew Haubner. I'm just losing my mind all of a sudden. Hour into a podcast problems. But thanks everyone for listening. Appreciate y'all.